Good evening. Welcome to the January 10th, 2023 ZBA meeting. First order of business is the election of officers. Is there a nomination for chairman?
I'd like to nominate Joe Tuzzola for chairman.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
Are there any other nominations for chairman? Hearing none, all in favor of Joe Tuzzola for chairman, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Next up is the position of secretary. Is there a nomination for secretary?
I'd like to nominate Sarah Ferranti as secretary.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any other nominations for secretary? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. We're done.
Okay, the microphone sounds like it's off just a little bit. Yours, it's not real loud coming across. Anyway, okay, good evening, everyone. This is the Zoning Board of Appeals, January 2023 meeting. Let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll start with a roll call. Do you want to do it, Susan? Thank you.
Chairman Tuzzola,
Here.
Sarah Ferranti,
Here.
Gary Montano,
Here.
William Soda.
He's excused.
Okay.
Excused. Here.
Gary Dubois,
Here.
Carmina Hirsch,
Here.
Mike Smith,
Here. Okay, thank you. If you feel there's a commissioner on this board that might be a conflict of interest with your application, please let us know. Item number 114 Merwin Avenue, had been left open for this evening's meeting, and Ms. Ferranti had chaired for that application, and I would like her to continue on with it, because all of the people, it was Ms. Ferranti, Carmina, Ms. Hirsch, Michael, you were involved, Mr. Smith, Gary Montano, and Gary Dubois. So all of you people were involved with the hearing last month. So if you would continue on with that. Ms. Ferranti, thank you.
Shall I read it into the...
Yes.
Okay, item number...
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, are you going to recuse yourself from item 1?
Yes, I'm going to recuse myself. Is there a reason I have to leave? I mean, you know, I'm just not part of it.
Yes, members who recuse themselves from a hearing have to leave the room.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay, item number 114 Merwin Avenue, MBP 59/737/15. Kevin Crusaden, Esquire for Peter Dreyer, appellant 112 Merwin Avenue. Appeal the decision in accordance with the provisions of section 9.2.1 regarding decision to issue a zoning permit date 7/21/22 for the construction of a single-family house in violation of zoning regulations.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. For the record, Kevin Kersaden, my office is at 3 Lafayette Street. I'm representing Mr. Dreyer, who is the owner of 112 Merwin Avenue, which is adjacent to 114 Merwin Avenue. I appreciate the board's consideration in leaving the hearing open from last month, and I know that it's been pending for some time, so I appreciate the consideration in that. I just have a couple. I did watch the tape and listen to the part of the recording for the part of the tape that was cut off. And I wanted to just address a couple of comments that I heard, able to answer questions, and I'll just clarify and summarize exactly what the claim is. So maybe I should start with the last part first. So the summary is that the appeal is of the issuance of the zoning permit, and the claim is that Mr. Harris or his office issued the permit improperly because there's a section in the Milford zoning regulations, section 5.8, that say if you fill or bring in fill to a property in a flood zone, you have to go to the Planning and Zoning Board for approval, whether, and depending on what type of, what you're actually doing with the site, it could be a site plan approval or it could be a special permit. And so in this particular case, you know, there's the three questions. I had wrote that in my December 10th letter, which you may or may not have had time to read, so I know it's a lot of information. But the first question is, well, what's the rule? The rule is under section 5.8 in the flood zone in Milford, if you bring in fill, you need to go to the Planning and Zoning Board for some type of approval, not administrative approval to the zoning officer. And then the second question is, was fill brought in? The answer to that question is yes. There's no secret about it. It was however many inches. And on that point, the amount of fill or when the fill was brought in is also doesn't matter. It just says if fill is brought in the flood zone. So you have the rule, then you have the answer that fill was brought into this site. Everyone acknowledges that, and it's clear to see. And then on the last question is, well, should the permit have been issued? Is there a Planning and Zoning Board approval as required by the regulations? And the answer to that question is no. So therefore, the permit hadn't been issued. Should not have been issued. When we were here back in April, I made the same appeal and I included the same section in the regulations. At that time, the board decided that the applicant was not in compliance with the city engineer's drainage letter, and the board upheld our appeal. But there was never any subsequent application or approval by the Planning and Zoning Board. So I'm making the same appeal as I did last time. So it wasn't, I was appealing one issue last time and I'm appealing a different issue this time. Also, when I was watching the tapes, I noticed, some of the comments were that Mr. Mooney had brought up, I think, and I'm trying to recall the exact comments that were made, that, well, I apologize, I lost my train of thought on that, but so we have the rule, we had the fact that fill was brought in, there was no Planning and Zoning Board approval. I think there was a question of, well, when was that fill brought in? And did Mr. Mooney overwork the permit? And so this, now I recall, appreciate your patience. Mr. Mooney had said that the plans that he submitted are what he built. I don't necessarily disagree with that, but that's also irrelevant because that's not what the appeal is about. The appeal is not that Mr. Mooney overworked the permit. The appeal is that the permit should not have been issued in the first place because Planning and Zoning Board approval was never given. So the remedy for this is that the applicant go to the Planning and Zoning Board under section 5.8 and get the proper approvals to fill, do the site work, or whether it's a special permit. The reason for that regulation is because there's some other language in the regulations under that same section that you're not to increase flooding on a neighbor's property when you develop your property. I heard comments at the hearing that the city engineer has been satisfied, which is also true. And that is also irrelevant because the city engineer's drainage is based on whether your drainage approval is based on whether you're increasing the runoff from your property. It's not based on whether you're blocking drainage from another property. So, which goes back to the reason for Section 5.8 in the first place. It's for the checks and balances for one of the agencies in the city of Milford to look at this and say, hey, you're going to bring in 12, 16, 18 inches of fill and put a retaining wall on the property line. Does the adjoining property currently drain across your property? Is this going to cause an issue? Which in this case, 112 did drain across 114 until the fill was brought in and the retaining wall was put up. So my client's looking to resolve this as well, and we're looking for a global resolution to this, as Attorney Lynch had mentioned at the last hearing, and we've had many conversations and we've been trying to resolve this. And we're hopeful that we will. But right now, the appeal is that Mr. Harris or his office should not have issued the permit without a planning and zoning board approval in the first place. So I'm available for any questions.
Attorney Crusaden, so tonight's appeal is to rescind the application and push it to planning and zoning where it should have been in the first place?
You're correct, Mr. Martano. It's to revoke the zoning permit that was issued by Mr. Harris for the construction of the single-family house and require the applicant to get planning and zoning board approval for it.
So that would be an affirmative vote tonight in your application?
Voting to uphold the appeal would be correct.
Okay, thank you.
I'm reading here, you provided an excerpt of 5.8.3 that says, specifically calls out construction below the regulatory flood protection elevation, which to me sounds like the specific flood zone line and doesn't necessarily implicate any property that has flood zone on it, but fill below or above that line, wherever that may be on a property. And I'm looking at one of these surveys here, and it looks like the flood zone is pretty far off from the house. So where was the fill put? All over the property, or was it, as they said last month, backfill against the foundation?
I don't think it was just backfill against the foundation. I'm pretty sure, and you know, Mr. Lynch or Mr. Mooney are here, they can answer that question better than I can. It appears that it was put throughout the property, but there's another section, there's 5.7.3, which is filling permits, which is right above that 5.8 section, that also talks about no filling with any earth products within a distance of 25 feet of any flood hazard area. So I think that the lot was definitely filled within 25 feet of a flood hazard area, but it's a good question about what was the actual base flood elevation under section 5.8.
Well, is it within 25 feet? I mean, I'm looking at a survey here that shows the house and shows the flood line, and I mean, I don't see a distance on it, but was it 25 feet or wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, there's a berm back there right on the wetlands line that was also created.
There's
So
what?
There's a berm that's in the back as well now that was also, I'm not sure if that's on the plan, that was a revised in the wetlands approval.
Kevin, we had a significant event recently with water on the two properties. Do you know what the issue was? Was it worse or better with those two driveways and that elevation? I guess two questions. One, did you get a summary of that last significant event? And secondly, is the at-grade driveways in comparison to both parcels, how far off? I didn't
The
see
driveways?
that.
Yeah. So, Mr. Wolf, the my client's engineer has gone out there during storm events the past couple of months since he's been retained. I drive by there on a daily basis. I know that there's been flooding in that area of Merwin Avenue for a significant period of time, and I also know that for my client, the flooding has gotten worse since the retaining wall has been put on the property line with 114 and the fill has put in. So the City of Milford engineer typically requires the property owners to, for single-family houses, to elevate, or at least he has in the past, above the flood zone so that the garage or the bottom of the garage is not below the base flood elevation. So in this case, the driveways are, it starts on grade and the same grade on the street, but then 114 with the house on it goes up significant, I think at least 18 inches towards the house, which is why, one of the reasons why I think the fill was brought in across the lot.
And this from what I remember, we had some inland wetlands and some engineering reports.
Yep.
That was part of that package back in April.
Correct.
Is that satisfied, or are those still?
According to the
open?
city engineer, his drainage comments are satisfied, which then satisfied the inland wetlands permit and caused Stephen to reissue the permit that was revoked based on that revocation. But once again, the project engineer, or my client's engineer, had reminded me yesterday that the city engineer's report is about increased runoff from 114. It doesn't necessarily address blocking runoff from another, or drainage from an adjacent property. They want to make sure that you're not creating more runoff than existed previously to the construction of the house. That's the focus of that report.
And at this point, with this retaining wall that apparently will remain and the berm on the outside, your client's backyard needs to get relief, or it's got to go that way.
Yeah, we have started to talk about a plan that would involve 3 different properties and try to solve it, hopefully for the long term or for a long period of time for a couple of different neighbors, right, including Mr. Mooney, my client, and another adjacent neighbor. So there is a plan in place, but what the elevation of the property, my client's property had a higher elevation compared to a lower elevation on Mr. Mooney's property prior to the bringing in the fill and the development. So when my client's property, when we would have, you see those flooding events, some of it would drain off onto 114 prior to the development of 114, which is really the basis for our claim on it.
I got it. Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Lynch, would you like to respond? Stephen?
Madam Chair, just to build on what I said last month and respond to Attorney Christine's remarks tonight. Concerning the fill, a couple of things. The city engineer likes the garage surface to be 18 inches above the crown of the road. Number 2, section 5.7.4.1 is the exemptions to the fill regulations, and those allow for minimal amounts of fill in relation to projects that have received the building permit. Staff, planning and zoning staff, determined that this was the minimal amount of fill. Let's see. Mr. Kerseden has admitted that the city engineer is satisfied with the drainage report, in that 114 Merwin will not increase water runoff to neighbors' property. And lastly, as to 5.8.3, special permits are not automatically required for single-family construction. They could be waived by the Planning and Zoning Board, and to bring in a single-family house for a construction, new house construction in a flood zone for a special permit has never been done. Just for that fact alone. The only reason why the Planning and Zoning Board would see a special permit in a flood zone would be if, say, a new house is going in within 25 feet of, mean high water, or one of the other features mentioned in section 416 I forgot what's in 416. So this house never would have been brought in for a special permit. It's a single-family house. The fill is exempt under section 5.7.4.1.
Exempt because it's determined to be the minimum amount required for the build by the city?
Yes, when we did our plan review, we determined that the proposal was zoning compliant for everything. Flood zone compliant, fill compliant, and so forth.
Okay, great. Do you have anything? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And again, for the record, Thomas Lynch. My office is located here in Milford at 63 Cherry Street, and I'm representing Cal Mooney, who's the owner of the property at 114 Merwin. And in listening to Kevin's comments, it's almost like it's a domino effect. What has happened on this stretch of Merwin Avenue, which, if we're all familiar with it, it does gather water on a regular basis, even during fairly light storm events. So by Kevin's own admission, his client's property, prior to the development of the 3 houses on the Mooney properties, water would drain from his client's property onto my client's property. My client applies to the zoning office for a zoning permit to build a house on 114, and in the process of doing so, he has his plans reviewed by the city engineer, they're reviewed by the Inland Wetlands Agency. There was an appeal of the issuance of the permit, as we all know, last spring, and Mr. Mooney went back and had the plans revised. He had the wetlands officer review the plans. They were certified by our city engineer, the person who Stephen looks to, his expert, to give him guidance on issuing zoning permits. And that's what we're here for tonight. There's a multitude of either legal remedies or legal procedures that Mr. Crusaden's either following or may follow. All right. At last meeting, I made you aware of the fact that a civil action has been brought in Milford Superior Court, brought by Mr. Crusaden and his client, claiming that water has traversed unreasonably from 114 Merwin onto his client's property. That's a civil action. That's an action that can be determined through expert testimony. What we're here and what you've been listening to for the last 4 months is testimony reports relative to one single issue, and the single issue is whether or not Stephen had the right to issue a building permit for this house. And the answer to that clearly is yes, he did. Mr. Mooney followed all the proper procedures. He filed his reports with the city engineer, the wetlands office. They were revised. Mr. Podleski, our city engineer, certified that the drainage that's provided by the site plan for this development is adequate to service the retention of stormwater drainage on the property so that it won't affect other properties. Now, with that said, has there been some water that's accumulated on Mr. Crusaden's client's property? There has been, but there's been no determination as to whether or not that water is the result of runoff from my client's property. We had an engineer who, from Codaspoti, who went out at an initial review of the problem and found that the tidal floodgate on the Surf Village condominiums, which was installed back in the 1970s, was all corroded, rusted, and could very well be the source of water collecting on Mr. Crusaden's client's property. So what I'm saying to you is I don't want to waste any more of your time going into a litany of all these things. As I said, Mr. Crusaden and his client have various legal remedies that they have either pursued or can pursue. The global solution here is to allow his client to have the same opportunity to bring fill onto his property to level everything off. And that's the simple engineering solution to correct all this. The problem is Mr. Mooney has built houses on his property. Mr. Crusaden's client has not developed his property yet. But he can take advantage of that same regulation that Stephen just read to you that says that when he goes to develop his property, if he chooses to do so, and build a single-family residence on the property, he can bring fill in a reasonable manner as set forth in our zoning regulations, and that in and of itself will cure the problem. So I just want to leave you with the thought that this is a hearing that was brought to say that Stephen screwed up. He issued a zoning permit that he shouldn't have. There's now $1 million house on this property that my client can't sell until this is all resolved. But the particular issue here in this application before you is whether or not Stephen made an error in issuing a zoning permit for this house, and clearly he did not. Thank you.
Okay. Stephen, last month we heard from the room, everyone for and against. Do we need to go through that again?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Anyone for or against the issue? We heard from everyone last month. Do we need to offer that again?
There may be new people in the
Oh,
room because the
okay.
hearing's still open, so
Okay.
we
All right, great.
should ask those questions.
Great. Is there anyone here wanting to speak in favor of the application? Is there anyone wanting to speak in opposition to the application? Come on forward.
No. I just, my name is Cal Mooney, I'm the owner of the property, and I just wanted to clarify something that I had just heard that might be of value. The previous lot was a parking lot, so it was completely impervious. This particular plan, if you read the drainage report, is 33% less impervious than it was prior to this. And the berm, I don't know if you understand what the berm is, because it's just, you may not. It's a biofiltration berm. It's not a berm to contain water. It's a berm to restrict water and purify it as it enters the wetlands. It's to slow it down, and then the water enters the wetlands there. So that, it's not like, I'm gonna, blocking water. And then the third thing is, my property was always higher than 112 by about 9 inches. So what Mr. Crusaden is saying is that the water used to drain onto my property. Well, sure, once it goes over 9 inches, but not prior to that. And I put the wall up because I didn't want to drain onto his property. I wanted to direct it completely and utterly, totally, 100% to the wetlands. So I just thought those points might be worth considering. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the board have any more questions? No? Stephen, I have a quick question on housekeeping. Are we allowed to close the hearing and vote with those who were here last month, or do we have to go with the members present?
People who were here last month and, of course, at this hearing can vote. That's, yeah.
Okay, so last month we had okay. Because we had quite a few alternates last month, but we have to go with regular members first, correct?
Yes, we had, it was the two Garys.
Two Garys,
Carmina, you, that's a quorum right there.
and
I
Mike.
believe, Michael Smith?
And it
Michael
was
Smith.
Mike.
That's 5.
But we can all vote, and Chris can sit out, even though he's a regular member? He's not an alternate. Because we're 6 now, right? Yeah, I think so. Okay, so regular members here tonight are Chris, me, Gary, not you, Carmina? No, okay. So, Carmina, would you please vote?
Yes, Madam Chair.
And Mike, would you please vote? Okay, so, Gary, you're not going to be voting? Okay, all right. Does anyone have any questions before we close the hearing?
Madam Chair, I believe the applicant gets the last word.
Mr. Crusaden?
Thank you. Just real briefly, there's been a lot of talk about the drainage and not having any drainage flow off 114. That's not the question right now. It's whether the permit was issued based on the regulations, first of all, and secondly, it's the claim is that the drainage from my client's property is now blocked based on the bringing in the fill and the creation of the retaining wall. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right, well, this hearing is closed. So everyone, we can all discuss except for Gary. What do you guys think?
It sounds like 114 followed the rules and worked with the city and got the appropriate permits, and relative to fill, it seems like a nominal amount as defined by Stephen in regulations.
Yeah, it would appear to me that Stephen was aware of exceptions to the fill and assessed it all, and that it was zoning compliant and therefore issued.
Madam Chair, I contend that the P&Z board should have gotten the site plan approval to bring the fill in. I don't believe, I do believe that Mr. Crusaden's appeal should be heard. Excuse me, heard. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, well, we'll need a motion.
Just to run down your options, the vote is either to uphold the issuance of the zoning permit or to overturn the issuance of the zoning permit.
I make a motion to overturn the permit.
Second?
Okay, the vote is to overturn the issuance of the zoning permit. Mr. Smith?
Against the motion.
Mr. Wolf?
Against.
Mr. Montano?
For the motion.
Ms. Hirsch?
Against the motion.
And I'm against the motion. Okay. Joe's coming back on to item number 2. Oh, that's his. Item number 2, 4 Crown Street, MBP 35/418/11, R5, Peter Lupoli and Carol Lupoli owners, vary section 3.1.4.1, rear yard setback to 5.1 feet where 20 feet required to construct attached garage.
Okay, before we get started with this, Mr. Soda is not here this evening, and he's a member, so we need an alternate to fill in. Ms. Hirsch, would you please vote?
Happy to, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Soda this evening, thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, well, I want to thank the members of the board for hearing my application. Admittedly, this is a new process for me, so if I get a little bit of guidance, I might just to tell you why I'm here and what we're trying to do. Is that? Okay. So my wife, Carrie, it's Carol on here, but her name is Carrie. We're trying to move our family to Milford from Bethany, Connecticut. It's because we fell in love with Milford. We love everything about this city. The house we're building, there's an existing garage on the property. It's falling down. It's not structurally sound. So we want to, the plans we have to reconstruct that, actually move it inbound from the border on both property lines that it faces, but it does connect to the house with a breezeway. And that's why I'm here. I can take-
Okay, so that's the only variance you're looking for.
Correct.
And I guess what you really want to do is, the garage is going to be a little bit larger, correct?
Yes, a little bit larger than the
But
existing.
you're looking to move it back, so will it be in line with the house at that point?
In line with the house.
It'll be in line with the house,
Correct.
and you want to connect it to the house, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Commissioners, any other questions?
How much closer to the property line is the new garage going to be than the current garage is?
Further. So the current garage is about 4 feet from the property line. This will be moving closer. On both sides, it gets closer. It gets closer to our house. I don't know if it helps at all, but there's an elevation. I have a few copies if you want to see it, but that's
But
the
it's coming
elevation.
into the property from the property line.
Correct. It's
Okay.
coming closer to our house. And if you look now, we just have the house is being built, and there's just this dilapidated garage next to it. And we'd really like to finish our vision and move over here. That's what we're trying to do.
Madam Chair. The original garage is 4 feet from the lot line. The proposed garage will be 6.3.
Steve, could you repeat that, please? I didn't hear you.
The original garage to be removed is 4 feet from the lot line. The new garage will be 6.3 feet.
But can you show that elevation again? The garage is going to be 2 stories?
There'll be a room above it, correct? You want to right up to it?
Sure. And the current detached garage is just a single-story garage. So it's going to be closer to the house, further from the property line, but it's going to be twice as tall.
It has second story, correct.
You are in a flood zone.
No.
No.
sir. No, Trumbull Beach, I don't believe.
I'm
There's
sorry?
No flood zone.
Questions? Go ahead, Mr.
So,
Michael.
looking at the plans, you only need a variance for the distance. You don't need a variance for the second floor of the garage. Is that correct?
No, it's lower than the house.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Wolf, go ahead.
Thanks for coming in. New house is currently under construction?
It is.
Was that a permitted
The,
construction?
we're following all the rules, yes.
And so your original permit to do the house didn't include the garage, left it as is?
Correct. Subsequent, I found out it wasn't structurally sound, and I realized we had to do something to correct it.
Okay, and it's a fully attached, you're going to have a breezeway in between?
Breezeway, correct. Yep.
What's going to go above it? Full bath, full rooms?
There will be an office, my wife works from home, and there will be a bathroom up there. That's the plan. Yeah. Full bath.
Okay, full bath. Separate panels, separate mechanicals?
Yeah, I think the mechanics will be a split unit because we won't run the heat from the main house. Have to be a
Okay.
that's- yeah.
It's a big one. So what was the original square footage of the house before you started?
I'm not certain. I'd have to go back and check. It's been quite a, originally we were going to remodel what was there. But there was a lot of work to be done.
And the current square footage of the new construction?
27.
Okay.
It's about 900 square foot per floor. So footprint is pretty small, but we had to stick to the footprint, so we followed that accordingly.
Very good. In the back of this, do we have floor plans or anything other than what's provided?
Mr. Harris, do we have any other plans?
What was submitted was a survey.
Yeah.
Just a survey? So separate entrance at the rear of this two-car garage?
No separate.
So no egress out the back of this? Or stairs leading into the two-car
So
garage?
that's why there's a breezeway. The breezeway will let you get up over the garage and into
Okay,
the
so
garage.
the stairs leading up to the second floor are from the breezeway?
Yeah, from the
Okay.
mudroom. So it's not we're one family. It's not gonna change.
Right.
Yeah.
It typically with something like this where you're adding on, the risk is you're technically looking like a two-family, so that's where
Oh,
people
yeah,
get
no.
concerned about.
Yeah, it wouldn't be set up for that very well because there's a one front door and you have to go right or left.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Good question.
I have another question.
Go ahead.
Did I hear you say earlier that you were going to leave the garage until you found out it wasn't structurally sound?
Well, the plans have evolved quite a bit. So the original plan was, the garage was going to be there when we were going to do it as a phase 2, come back at some point. It's quite an investment for my wife and I as well. But when we realized it's 2x4 construction on a slab, you can see out to the neighbor's house from the back walls. We realized we don't want to be forever under construction, so we're trying to get it done now so we can have grass and not be always digging in the
I'm
area.
just wondering if the garage that you're proposing now was not part of the original plan, and you were going to use the garage until you found out it wasn't structural. I don't understand why you need the second floor above the garage. That's a lot of building to be that close to the property line.
Well, like I said before, we want to make this our primary residence forever, and I have two daughters. Right now, I currently have an exchange student from Mexico. We do need that extra space for them. That's why we like to do it.
Mr. Lupoli, what's the hardship?
What's the hardship?
Yes.
Can you
So-
tell me more?
So usually when someone comes before this board to ask for a variance, there's a hardship that's attached to the property. And I don't see one articulated in your application, and I haven't heard one through your presentation. Perhaps there is one that you have to articulate, and that's all I'm asking, is what's the hardship?
I guess I wouldn't refer to it as a hardship. The barrier is to complete this construction with the breezeway. We need to come here for the variance. I believe it has to do with the distance from the property line.
Any other questions? Any other questions? No? Is there anyone else speaking in favor of this application? Anyone else in favor? Is there anyone here opposed? Any opposition to it? If you are, please come forward. State your name and your address, please, and your reasons why you're opposed.
My name is Maureen Mead. I live at 1055 East Broadway. So my house, the side of my house is the back of the Lupoli's new house. And it's, the house is very large, and it rather dwarfs my house a lot. And the attached garage to the house will just completely, the whole side yard will be building. We'll lose sunshine, we'll lose breeze from the water. And that's pretty much it. It's the whole side yard will be house or siding or whatever you want to call it, construction. And that's my objection. And it's rather close to our house. because they're very old houses, and it's 5 feet between the property lines. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else opposed? Anyone else opposed? Any questions, commissioners? Okay, did you want, you can speak again if you'd like.
No,
Okay,
I think
all
I've
right.
said what I need to say.
Okay,
Thank
this
you.
hearing, this hearing is closed. Okay, so we need a motion to approve. Well, Mr. Harris might have that answer for us. You're looking for the lot coverage with the proposed garage.
Yeah. Usually puts it on. I can see it.
Okay, lot coverage, this is an R5 zone, so lot coverage would be 65% of the lot. Although it's not stated on the survey what the lot coverage is, if you look at the outline of the house and the outline of the proposed addition, that's no more than half the lot. It's about half at most. Lot
Okay.
coverage is 65%, and this is well under 65% of the lot.
All right, we need a motion. We need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Seconded.
Discussion? We have a motion and we have a motion second. Discussion? Go ahead, your thoughts.
It feels like a lot of house to be that close to the property line. I understand that the garage was existing, and we typically don't have a problem when things are replacing the existing footprint, and this would certainly be an improvement, but we're only talking about 2 feet. So it's 2 more feet, but a whole extra story up. I feel like that's a very different imposition that close to the lot line than a single-story garage is.
Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. If you're building something like this, you know that 2-car was good or bad. You're having a significant improvement into larger house, but I don't like tying this in and then going with another full unit above it.
Right, and that second floor of the garage it's not connected at all to the house. It's a completely separate living space. It doesn't feel necessary. If the house needed that kind of space, it would have been part of the house.
It's a good ask, but with adjacent neighbors and the size of this relative to these lots, I'm not good with it.
Okay.
I agree with Sarah and Chris, and with no articulated hardship, it's, a difficult consideration to make. I wonder if the homeowner would consider changing his plans to remove that second story.
Was that a question to me? Sorry.
I close this hearing. We can't take any more comments. Thank you. Okay. Any other thoughts? All right. So we have a motion to approve, and we had a second on the motion. So you are either for the motion or against the motion. Correct? Okay. Ms. Hirsch?
Against the motion.
Ms. Ferranti?
Against the motion.
Mr. Wolf?
I'm against the motion.
Who did I miss? Mr. Montano?
Against the motion.
I'm against the motion. Fails. Motion fails.
Item number 3, 849 East Broadway, MBP 17/475/8, R 7.5, Thomas Lynch Esquire for David and Nancy Campbell, owners. Vary section 3.1.4.1, northerly side yard setback to 1 feet where 5 feet required, and southerly south yard setback to 3.3 feet where 10 feet required to construct a single-family home.
Good evening, Madam Chair, and again, for the record, Thomas Lynch. On this application, I'm representing my clients David and Nancy McDonald, who drove down from Bristol tonight to be with me at this meeting. And we're presenting to you an application to vary the side yard setbacks for 849 East Broadway, which is located in the R75 zone. The application, if approved, will allow them to construct a new residence on the property. It's a rather small lot, 7,500 square feet, that actually has been in Nancy's family's ownership since 1936. So this was a typical family beach cottage for many, many years. The family's enjoyed it over the years, and now Nancy and David want to do these improvements to the property to construct a reasonably sized house for their full-time residents. So the application is to vary section 3141, the side yard setback on the north side to 1 foot, and on the south side to 3.3 feet. So the main point that I want to stress right at the outset in my presentation to you is that this application seeks to construct the new residence with the exact same setbacks as the current house has. The plan is to move the house backwards towards Long Island Sound. In doing so, that will create 2 additional off-street parking spaces, and we're all familiar with the parking problem that exists on East Broadway. So one improvement that I want to stress in my presentation is movement of the house backwards will create not only the 2 spaces that will be provided in the garage area, but also it will provide 2 other additional spaces in front of the house. The current house is some 20 feet by 39 feet. It's a, again, cottage that was built in 1910, and this house will now be compliant with all of the FEMA regulations. I did submit to the zoning office building plans and floor plans. Unfortunately, without the overhead projector, I don't have the capacity to show them to you, but I can tell you, or I do have one set of the plans to pass out. If I had known that we were going to have the technical problem tonight, I would have made a set of 6 plans to give to you. But basically, it's going to be a 2-story colonial structure styled with the typical Nantucket, New England style of facade and roof lines. On the lower level will be the elevated area for the parking of the cars. The first floor of the living space is going to have a very large living room family area with a kitchen and a pantry. And then on the second floor, there's going to be a good-sized master bedroom, 2 other additional bedrooms. There will be a master bedroom bath and a second full bath to accommodate the other 2 bedrooms. The third level is going to be unfinished attic space. So that it's a reasonably sized house. It's certainly not a McMansion that's going to be tearing down a cottage and building a much larger house. There are many, many other houses that have been built along East Broadway, both on the shore side and the marsh side, that are much larger than this house. It's a reasonably sized house. The other point that I wanted to make to you is that there's a rather extensive rear yard that now results even with the new house. The new house is going to be 20 feet wide, 60 feet long, with no deck. There's not a deck that's provided with this house. So David and Nancy had discussions with their neighbor, Ms. Doolittle. Their concern was to place the house in a manner and in a fashion that wouldn't infringe on the neighbor's view looking to the east to Milford Harbor, so that the placement of the house really it didn't happen by happenstance. It was a well-laid-out plan that they had with discussion with their neighbors, so that, a 60-foot-long house without a deck, again, very reasonable in terms of the other developments that have taken place on East Broadway. And as well, a 2,400 square foot two-floor house is well within the reasonable size of the neighborhood. So with that, I'd like you to, unfortunately, approve this application without the full set of plans that are up on the screen. If anyone has any specific questions about the floor plans or the elevations, I do have one set with me. I could bring them up and you can pass them along to each other. But again, the hardship exists with the existing side yard setbacks. They actually meet the same setbacks as the current house. There will be no increase. This application will not result in any increase in the nonconformity of the setbacks and the other zoning regulations. And lastly, as I said, it's a 20-foot wide house. It's a very minimum, as we all know from plans that we've brought to you before. That's basically the minimum sized house that can be built within reason. So unless there's any questions, that's all that I have to submit to you, and I hope that you grant this application so David and Nancy can move forward with their new house. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Montana, I have a question.
Attorney Lynch, I have a little confusion. Maybe it's just a typo, but on our minutes, it has David and Nancy Campbell.
Correct.
Here it says David and Nancy McDonald.
It was a Scribner's error, Gary, on the letter that went out, but I had discussions with the zoning office, and since the application was submitted correctly with the McDonald's name on it, and it was submitted with my office and...
Who's Edna Cleveland?
Edna Cleveland is Nancy's mother. She's the owner of the property. Okay. She's the owner of the property. But the actual error on the letter going out, it was determined by the zoning office that that was what we call a Scribner's error, and my name was listed as the agent.
So it's not Campbell, it's
McDonald.
McDonald, thank you.
But Edna Cleveland is Nancy McDonald's mother.
Thank you.
Yep.
Questions, Mr. Wolf?
Tom, the third floor remains unfinished, the floor to ceiling height on that? Do we know?
There's knee walls in there, Chris, so that I want to say that in the eave, there's probably going to be a 7 foot to the top, okay. Maybe 8 or 9.
Full stair going up just for storage?
Actually, elevator.
Okay.
The house is being serviced by an elevator. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Other questions? There's a public walkway on the left side of this going out to the beach?
No. A passway to the beach? Yes, there is.
There is. So the variance that's closest to the property line is bordered by that walkway?
That's correct. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, anyone else speaking in favor? Anyone else speaking in favor? Is there anyone opposed to this application? Commissioners, any further questions? Okay, this hearing is closed.
Thank you.
Okay, again, we need a motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman, as stated, I approve, I support the amendment. Yes.
Are you making,
Okay,
you're
I'll
making
make
a
a
motion?
motion, to support.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. We need a second.
Second?
Okay, discussion?
It's a tight one. Can I ask Stephen at this point for just, if this was a raw lot with this 20-foot wide house with a 1 foot setback, if they had to remain within a 10-foot side yard setback on both sides, it'd put the house at 12 feet.
It's in the footprint, though. It's in the original footprint.
The zone is R75. The side yard setbacks are 5 feet on one side and 10 on the other if this was a vacant lot.
If it was a vacant? Okay. If, right,
Yeah.
just suppositioning a vacant parcel.
So you can do the math.
Got it.
Any other discussion? We have a motion to approve, and we had a second on the motion?
I second the motion.
Okay. All right, Mr. Wolf,
I'm for the motion.
Ms. Ferranti,
With the motion.
Ms. Hirsch,
With the motion.
Mr. Montano.
With the motion.
I'm with the motion. It's approved.
Item number 4, 28 West Avenue, MBP 31/302/3, R 12.5, Thomas Lynch Esquire for James and Jasmine Coulson, owners. Vary section 4.1.4, front yard projection to 17.3 feet where 26 feet is permitted to construct a front porch addition.
Again, Madam Chairman, for the record, Thomas Lynch. On this application, I'm representing James and Jasmine Coulson. My client, Jim Coulson, is seated here with me. And they are the current owners of the property at 28 West Avenue. It's located in the Naugatuck Gardens section of Milford. I think we're all familiar with that area. And the request here is to vary Section 414, the projection regulation. What James and Jasmine want to do is to put a major renovation together on this property. And in doing so, the only zoning variance that's requested here is for the front porch that they want to add. And for this one, I did make copies of the front elevation so you can see this, so I'd like to pass this out to you. It's like the way we used to do things. All right, so just by way of background. So my clients bought this house just last year, or actually in September of 2021. It's an extremely small house. It's only 805 square feet. It's a two-bedroom house. It's a ranch that was built back in 1949. There were a lot of smaller houses that were built in the Naugatuck Gardens back then, Utica Street, Opal, Innsbrook. All of those houses were built on lots, and a lot of them were very small and then expanded on later on. That's exactly what my clients want to do. There were upgrades to the zoning regulations since 1949 that sort of affected this area, and now my clients are bound by the current regulations rather than what regulations were in effect in 1949. So what they want to do is to take this ranch, expand it, put a second floor on it, nice looking dormers, a garage underneath, and have a nice front porch accessory to that. So that the pre-existing location of the house precludes a porch going anywhere else. The side yards couldn't be met by having the porch go on the north side. The south side of the property is going to be serviced by a driveway coming into the lower level garage. And as you can see by the elevation that I've given to you, it's the natural place for a porch to go in the front part of this house. The setbacks in that area, again, in 1949, the house is, even with the porch, is going to have a very reasonable 21-foot setback from the road. But the other thing that I want to stress to you, if you look at the survey, and I don't know, again, if you were going to be utilizing the overhead or if you have a copy of the survey, but what's really, really important on this application is the fact, if you look at the street line of West Avenue and the deed line for the property at 28 West Avenue, you see that there's a gap there. And this happens many, many times around town. Actually, the last application that we just heard on East Broadway, there's a lot of homes along East Broadway where the development, the driveway and whatnot, actually goes into the city right-of-way. So what I'm trying to point out to you there is we're really not asking for a variance here. Technically, we are, because under our zoning regulations, you have to set your front yard or your projection into your front yard based on your deed line. But if you look there, the deed line is some 6 feet behind the pavement of West Avenue. So what I'm submitting to you is that, yeah, we have to apply for a variance here because it encroaches within so many feet of the deed line. But when you add that extra 5 or 6 feet between the deed line and West Avenue, you really have a full-sized front yard and full-sized projection maintenance on this property. So I hate to use the term that it's a technicality, but it's a technicality. All right? So with that said, again, the hardship is the location of the property without the availability to put the porch on either side of the house, and with the fact of the additional space that's provided between the pavement area and the deed line. I think that this is a reasonable request, and I'd ask that you grant it so that they can move forward with their project. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Attorney Lynch?
Thank you. Attorney Lynch, the original house was just this? The garage is a full addition?
The original house, and again, I wish I had that thing.
Yeah, just this.
Because Paul Stoll's map shows all improvements in blue. Well, guess what? I don't have it in blue. I don't know if you can see it, so.
We do not have it in blue.
All right, so I think what's the footprint of the footprint of the house
It's just
is what
this.
you see
Yes.
to the right-hand side of the property, Sarah. The two-story addition with the garage under is an improvement that's being added on. And then you have the patio in the back and the retaining wall and the sidewalks in the front.
The only variance, of course, is just that front porch.
That's correct.
That's it.
Yep. Sarah, did that answer your
Any other
question?
questions?
How deep is the porch?
5 feet. Not a wide porch.
No.
Any other questions?
Attorney Lynch, am I right in that there's anywhere from 5 to a 7-foot contour slope of the front and backyard?
You're correct, Gary, and that's why you see on that elevation that I gave you, the retaining wall,
Right.
it slopes. That's correct. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else speaking in favor? Anyone else speaking in favor? Is there anyone here opposed? 28 West Avenue? Anyone here opposed? No further questions, commissioners? No? Okay, this hearing's closed.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, we need a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve.
Seconded.
We have a motion to approve. We have a second on the motion. Discussion? All set? Discussion? All set? Okay. All right, as you can see, it's almost doubling in size, but the lot is able to accept that, and the only variance is that the front porch. So, Mr. Wolf,
I'm for the motion.
Ms. Ferranti,
With the motion.
Ms. Hirsch,
With the motion.
Mr. Munt.
With the motion.
I'm with the motion. It's approved.
Item number 5, 120 West Avenue, MBP 32/353/1, R7.5. Nelson and Antonia Gomes, owners, vary section 3.1.4.1, west front yard setback to 15.5, where 20 feet required to build an attached garage.
Good evening. My husband and I have a hardship. We're on a triangle lot. So we're asking for a variance to build a 2-car garage with a room on top.
We need you to identify yourself, please.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm Antonia Gomes. My husband, Nelson Gomes, wanted to be here tonight, but unfortunately, he's on military duty, so I hope I can answer the questions you may have.
Okay, this is a very unusual piece of property. It's a corner lot. It's big in its size, but anyway,
Triangle corner lot.
any questions for this lady?
Question? Hi, thanks for coming in. Above the garage is bedrooms and bath?
Above the garage would be a bedroom and a bath, correct?
And stairways leading into the main house?
Correct.
Okay.
And the addition is just the garage on the floor above it, the rest of the house is existing?
Correct.
Any other questions? No? Okay. Is there anyone else speaking in favor of this application? Is there anyone here opposed? We're running out of people out there, but I have to ask these questions. Anyone here opposed? Any further questions? Okay, this hearing's closed. Again, motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve.
I second.
Okay, discussion?
I think,
Any-
sorry.
Go ahead.
We see applications a lot for corner lots. This is a corner lot, but it's also, I think, unreasonably shaped. This seems like a reasonable point to put a garage. It's 24 feet. That's a two-car garage. It's not excessively large. Just a few feet over, and you're, once that parcel opens up, you're getting your setback. I mean, I just don't know where else you would put it. I don't have a problem with this.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, we always look for hardships, and this is a corner lot. This is a true hardship on this one, so. Okay, so we have a motion to approve, and we had a second on the motion. Mr. Wolf?
I'm for the motion.
Ms. Ferranti?
With the motion.
Ms. Hirsch?
With the motion.
Mr. Montana?
With the motion.
I'm with the motion. It's approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 6, 34 Virginia Street, MBP 30/640/6, R5. Abel Alvarez, owner. Vary section 4.1.4, front yard projection to 5 feet where 8 feet permitted for a generator deck.
Good evening. My name is Abel Alvarez. I am seeking a variance to complete the construction of a platform to hold a generator. The hardship is that the property is located on a narrow corner lot. It's actually adjacent to the water, so there's always a concern about what the weather's going to do with power and freezing pipes and all of that, which I have previously experienced in the home. And in order to make the house safer, I need to have the variance so we can finish construction of the platform and install the generator.
Is this for a generator or, is that what it says, for a generator?
For a generator, exclusively.
Okay. Yeah, because I had come by and I thought maybe possibly that you were moving the air conditioning unit from one side of the house to the other. I didn't realize it was for a generator.
Just for the generator. The air conditioning will stay where it is.
Okay. Questions for this gentleman? Go ahead, Mr.
Mr.
Montana.
Chairman, through you, I find this platform to be very large, 5 by 10. Are you in a flood zone?
I am.
And where is your air conditioner, your compressor?
It's on a platform on the other side of the home.
At the proper elevation?
Correct.
Okay. I've built homes for my family, and the size of the platform isn't at all obscene, but usually it's a compressor for the AC and the generator. What size generator are you going?
It's a 24
24?
watt. Yeah, it's
20?
one of the larger, it's a larger unit.
Yeah.
We do need to have a little bit of room.
Propane?
It's going to be powered by gas, natural gas. And what's been explained to me by my electrical contractor who's installing this is that we need to have enough room to separate the generator from the rest of the deck, and also allow room for a technician to get around it. So that's why it's the size as it is.
I don't doubt that, but I think it's a little excessive. But I could go with it, being that you have to have distance between the walls and, of course, windows for exhaust, etc.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Is there
Mr. Wolf.
a man door opening from the house onto this deck for maintenance?
No, so the maintenance of it will be it'll be accessed with a ladder going up.
I understand.
Aside from that.
Very good. And just curiosity, gas, natural gas,
natural
propane?
gas.
Yep, yep.
Natural
and
gas.
you've got gas on the property already, so.
Correct.
Good,
Yes.
good. Thank you.
Any other questions? Anyone else speaking in favor? Is there anyone here opposed? Any further questions, commissioners? This hearing is closed. Motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
Seconded.
We have a motion and discussion. This platform is, I've gone by the house and I see where the platform is going to be, and it's not really affecting anything. And if it's for a generator, I don't have any problem with it. Any other discussion? No? All right, we have a motion to approve, and we have a second on the motion. Mr. Wolf?
I'm with the motion.
Ms. Ferranti?
With the motion.
Ms. Hirsch?
With the motion.
Mr. Montano?
With the motion, sir.
I'm with the motion, it's approved. Okay, so that is our agenda. New business, is new business first or old business? New business. We don't have it written on here. New business, any new business? I have some new business here. I just want to congratulate, Mr. Soda's not here this evening and he's been reappointed. So we want to congratulate Mr. Soda. Ms. Hirsch is here this evening and she's been reappointed. We want to congratulate her. Okay, so they're going to continue on with their work. And one other thing I'd like to mention to all of you is I had been away for several months, and I want to thank Ms. Ferranti for the great job she did as chairman, and for all of you commissioners working together and filling in when people aren't here. So I got to tell you, you just did a great job, and I really appreciate your efforts. So next would be any old business. Any staff updates? We need approval of the minutes from last meeting. Okay, we have a motion to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I guess that's it. Motion to adjourn? Second. Here we go. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Thank you, commissioners.